Let's talk for a moment today about wisdom and using the tools one has. Hello, everyone. If you have watched any videos on my channel prior to this one, you may know that I am a collector of pencils. And there are always lots and lots of pencils nearby wherever I am, whether I'm recording a video or not. You may also know that I am a collector of typewriters. Thankfully, I have less of those than I have of pencils. I also have a great number of books. What you may not know is that while I collect a lot of writing implements, I do not do a lot of writing. It is something that I have gotten out of the habit of doing, but I think perhaps it is time for me to return to learning to do that for a few reasons. One, I have spent the last 20 years turning my beard gray from its former red-brown color. And I figure with the amount of gray that I have, I ought to have accumulated some wisdom along the way. May or may not be true. And two, because I have tools that are not being used, that makes me something of a hoarder, doesn't it? But if I use the tools that I gather around myself, that is a horse of a different color, is it not? So there are a few channels that I follow and have recently begun following here on YouTube that are focused on writing implements, and what one does with those writing implements. And lately I've seen a pattern in videos recommended to me by the all-knowing algorithm. And those videos are videos about commonplace books. And it was not a phrase I was familiar with. But the more I look into it, the more it seems like something that I ought to be doing. Now, most of you watching probably already know what a commonplace book is, but essentially, at least one form of it is a book where you record notes, quotes, selections from books you are reading or lectures you have attended, or I suppose films you have watched, or something of that nature, and you collect them all in one place to use offline, as it were, at your the time of your choosing. A journal is something I have never felt comfortable doing because I never felt I had anything worthwhile to say to record in a journal. A commonplace book, though, I come across things in books all the time that I think ought to be remembered, considered, thought upon, bandied about inside my dome. This book here I talked about recently on my channel. I'm in another reread of this Boethius Consolation of Philosophy, rereading that again because it's such a small book but so dense. I figured it deserved another reread immediately after the first read through, and I'm coming across things that I think are worth hanging on to, worth remembering and pondering and thinking about. Anyway, I'm latching on to this idea of a commonplace book to keep those bits of books, the arguments, the quotations, the colorful illustrations, whatever it happens to be. And since I don't want to put undue pressure on myself, as I said, I don't feel like I have anything worthwhile to write. So having a very nice, expensive, valuable book, I think, would be counterproductive for me. So AliExpress to the rescue, very cheap. I'm sure it's a knockoff of some kind of popular notebook. Don't know, maybe somebody watching will know what this is mimicking. But as I'm working through Boethius again, I will be taking notes in my Commonplace book. This is not from Boethius. The things I've recorded here are actually from the apocryphal book of Ecclesiasticus in the King James translation, and these are quotations about wisdom. All wisdom cometh from the Lord, and is with him forever. Who can number the sand of the sea, and the drops of rain, and the days of eternity? Who can find out the height of heaven, and the breadth of the earth, and the deep, and wisdom? So as I read through whatever I happen to be reading, as I come across bits of wisdom, whether it's about the subject of wisdom or about some other subject, I will record it here in my Commonplace book and see if this encourages me in my attempts to use the tools that I have, and whether it helps me along the road to wisdom so that I will not have grown my gray beard in vain. The definitive text, boy, that's sorry about the glare there. This is a 5th generation Kindle Fire for those playing along at home. I don't know if this is going to show up well on the screen or not, but maybe you'll be able to see this. I prefer to read my books in actual paper format, but I have this old Kindle sitting around, and why not use the tools that I have? Here we have a facsimile, a reproduction of the book by John Locke, A New Method of Making Commonplace Books, written 1685, I think, somewhere around there, unless I've just got my numbers confused. But it is a photocopy of John Locke's book on the subject of commonplace books, which I have begun to read through. Fascinating that I can digitally look at this text in the 21st century here. Draw your attention to, hopefully you'll be able to see this, John Locke's instructions for setting up a commonplace book include this section. I take a white paper book of what size I think fit. I divide the 2 first pages, which face one another by parallel lines, into 5 and 20 equal parts with black lead. After that, I cut them perpendicularly, etc., etc. Black lead, 1685, maybe a little over 100 years after the discovery of graphite in England, and black lead is what they were calling it, if it wasn't being called English antimony or antimony. So I'm following in Mr. Locke's footsteps in my pursuit of wisdom. I'm sure there are other pencil-related quotes I'll be able to jot down in my book of wisdom, my cheap AliExpress, bright orange, don't take yourself so seriously, commonplace book. But one does what one can. That was just a brief update today to let you know what I'll be working on. If you are familiar with the concept of the commonplace book, maybe you use that in your own reading, in your own study, in your own intellectual development, let me know. Thanks for watching this brief video today. Hope to see you here again next time.